वेस्टर्न आर्टिस्ट बड़े अरसे रहा चाइना में, उसने अपना काम दिखाया और पेंटिंग्स दिखाई और चाइनीज़ आर्टिस्ट को टिप्स भी दी, और चाइनीज़ बड़े पोलाइटली वो हाउ यस यस गुड 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 वो करके उसे शेशिए और सब कुछ। एंड में उसके आर्टिस्ट के लिए उनके एजाज़ में उन्हें दावत दी और उसे तोहफे दिए। जब वो जाने वाला था वो आर्टिस्ट बड़े फ़ख्र में फूला हुआ था कि मैंने इन लोगों को सिखाया ये शेडिंग क्या होती है और ये असल आर्ट अब देखने को मिली है। तो कहते हैं कि चाइनीज़ आर्टिस्ट जब जाने लगे तो जो आर्टिस्ट उसका मेज़बान था उसने एंड में जाके उससे पोलाइटली कहा, Sir, tell me one thing. Why is it that in your country people only wash half their faces? So, so everyone was not blown over and सब मगलूब नहीं हो जाते थे, एक ये बात है। So let me read something to you, and we can. I mean, there's a lot left to go over, but I want to read something to you. This is from a German explorer, Titus Burckhardt. From his travels to Morocco in 1933, he lived in Fez for a year. और उसकी किताब में से आपको पढ़ता हूँ। In Fez, craftsmanship still retains something of its ancient meaning. It corresponds to a necessity, and at the same time, it is an art. Form and function, sir. The heads or trustees of the various guilds ensure that the work of each master conforms to the required standard of excellence, that the materials used are of good quality, and that the prices are just. They also provide for the sick and needy members of their professional community. But today the guilds are threatened by modern economy and driven into a tight corner by the political trade unions. If they should ever disappear, something much more than a particular outward expression of professional solidarity would be lost. I knew a comb maker who worked in the street of his guild, the मशातीन, मशाता हमारे यहाँ भी होती है ना, जो होती थी जो मेकअप कराती थी। I knew a comb maker who worked in the street of his guild, the मशातीन. He was called Abdul Aziz, slave of the Almighty, and he always wore a black jalaba, the loose hooded garment with sleeves, and a white turban with the litham, the face veil, which surrounded his somewhat severe features. He obtained the horn for his combs from ox skulls, which he brought from butchers. He dried the horn skulls at a rented place, removed the horns, opened them lengthwise, and straightened them over a fire, a procedure that had to be done with the greatest care lest they should break. From this raw material he cut combs and turned boxes for antimony, used as an eye decoration, on a simple lathe. This he did by manipulating with his left hand a bow which, wrapped round a spindle, caused the apparatus to rotate. In his right hand he held the knife, and with his foot he pushed against the counterweight. As he worked, he would sing Quranic surahs in a humming tone. I learnt that as a result of an eye disease which is common in Africa, he was already half blind, and that in view of long practice he was able to feel his work rather than see it. One day he complained to me that the importation of plastic combs was diminishing his business. It is not only a pity that today, solely on account of price, poor quality combs from a factory are being preferred to much more durable horn combs, he said. He said, it is also senseless that people should stand by a machine and mindlessly repeat the same movement, while an old craft like mine falls into oblivion. My work may seem crude to you, but it harbors a subtle meaning which cannot be explained in words. I myself acquired it only after many long years, and even if I wanted to, I could not automatically pass it on to my son, if he himself did not wish to acquire it. And I think he would rather take up another occupation. This craft can be traced back from apprentice to master until one reaches our Lord Seth, the son of Adam. It was he who first taught it to men, and what a prophet brings, for Shays was a prophet, must clearly have a special purpose, both outwardly and inwardly. I gradually came to understand that there is nothing fortuitous about this craft, that each movement and each procedure is the bearer of an element of wisdom. But not everyone can understand this. But even if one does not know this, it is still stupid and reprehensible to rob men of the inheritance of the prophets, and to put them in front of a machine where day in and day out they must perform a meaningless task. So I think this is a very good example of how the traditional people viewed their craft and their art. किस तरह देखते हैं. Even today calligraphy में अभी तक बाकी है. Ustad Nafis al-Hussaini is a very good example. He's a peer in Sufi silsila. He's also the greatest master of Nastaliq in Lahore and in the subcontinent. और उस्ताद नफीस अल-हुसैनी जो है वो खुद कहते हैं कि नस्तालीक कुरान शरीफ के लिए मौजू ख़त नहीं. नस्तालीक, if you're familiar with this flowing script which is used in Urdu. और वो वजह बताते हैं कि क्यों नस्तालीक को रिप्लेस किया गया नस्ख और सुलुस से in the subcontinent. Because the calligraphers of that time, not the kings, the calligraphers felt that nastaliq, because it has a slight angle, about 70 degrees, it's very elegant and खींचा हुआ होता है, खासतौर पर इसका जो शिकस्ता जो सूरत है. They felt it did not have enough waqar, enough dignity to convey the words of the Quran. Now what is this concept of waqar? The Kufic script, the vertical and the horizontal, is about jalal and jamal. The cursive element is jamal. The vertical element is jalal. यानी उतना जलाल नहीं आ रहा था नस्तालीक से, जो एक हकीकत है जो हम सब महसूस कर सकते हैं. नफीस अल-हुसैनी जो हैं जब सिखाते हैं तो बावजू बैठते हैं और बावजू सिखाते हैं, और जूती उतार के आपको आनी होती है और उनके पास इसी तरह सीखना होता है. जब कोई भी सारे खतात आपको बताएंगे, जब आप कोई लफ्ज़ लिखना शुरू करते हैं तो कलम उस पोजीशन में होता है जिस वो अलिफ बनाता है, और जहाँ आप ख़त्म करते हैं चाहे कोई भी हर्फ हो उसी पोजीशन में होता है जो अलिफ बनाता है. हुवल अव्वल हुवल आखिर, गॉड इज़ द फर्स्ट एंड गॉड इज़ द लास्ट. जब कोई भी मज़ार बनता है, कोई भी मस्जिद बनती है, तो सेंटर में एक स्क्वायर होता है. स्क्वायर के 4 कोने होते हैं. That represents the temporal world, the 4 directions of this world, आलम नासूत. उसके ऊपर जब गुंबद है जो अर्श को represent करती है, interestingly it has to fit on an octagonal drum. उसकी जो कुर्सी है उसे हश्त पहलू होना ही होता है. That's how you transit from a square to a circle. That's the only way you can do it structurally also. Can this be an accident? Not for a traditional person. And how can the traditional artist think that this is an accident जब कुरान में लिखा हुआ है कि अल्लाह का अर्श जो है उसे 8 फरिश्तों ने उठाया हुआ है. वो आलम मलकूत को जाहिर करता है. जो ये है खाना, ये आलम नासूत है. उसके ऊपर आलम मलकूत या बरज़ख है, between 2 worlds, the angelic world, the physical world, the angelic world. उसके ऊपर जो अर्श है आलम लाहूत, the world beyond, the world of God. See, so everything, I mean there's 1,000 examples we could go into, but and there's a lot more of this, how the traditional artist viewed himself. It's a lot more of this, but I think the fundamental concept to remember is this: the artist was not an individual, and it was not about his individualism. चाहे एक आदमी 8-pointed star बनाए या दूसरा बनाए, चाहे वो मोरक्को में बने, चाहे मलेशिया में बने, चाहे खते सुलुस में चीचिया बटनी में कोई काम कर रहा हो या खते सुलुस में कायरो में कोई काम कर रहा हो, it is still sulus. It is this impersonal thing. It's about glorifying God. Beautiful things relate to God. And before we take a break, कुछ एस्थेटिक्स और ब्यूटी के बारे में भी हमें कुछ कहना चाहिए. हमारा जो ब्यूटी का कॉन्सेप्ट है, बल्कि हमारा जो आर्ट का कॉन्सेप्ट है, हार्ड एज इट इज़ फॉर पीपल टू हियर, बिकॉज नाउ देयर इज मॉडर्निटी, there's all kinds of new Islam which have come in, reformist Islam, progressive Islam, which came after the encounter with modernity. But traditionally the only Islam for the people was actually Sufic Islam. This is a reality which people might not want to face for whatever reason, but this is the reality. Traditionally this was the way it was. Virtually every craft guild that you go and you find हाँ जी वो फलाना पीर से उसके हाथ पे हम इस्लाम लाए थे और हम उनके, that's how it used to be. Now it's changing, it's changed already, as you know. But this is the context that was there. It was Sufic Islam जो context देता था कि भाई क्या है, मतन था कि क्या है, आगे क्या है, पीछे क्या है, इसके माने क्या है. So everything that was done had that symbolism, had that manviyat in it. Right? Manviyat is not exactly the same as symbolism. जो कुछ किया गया है हमारे वो इसके तहत किया गया. That was the dominant context in which our art was done. So Sufi aesthetics obviously becomes very important, and let me explain the basic idea. The basic idea is Jamal and Jalal. God manifests himself in the world, and the manifestation may be Jamal or of magnificence, of his glory, which is Jalal, or it might be of beauty, which is Jamal. Tawheed usi mein dono mein nazar aati hai. And at a higher level, Jamal also becomes Jalal. So if we give you the example of Hazrat Ghulam Farid, I think. लोका आख्या मजने नू तेरी लैला रंग दी काली. लोगों ने मजनू से कहा तुम्हारी लैला तो काली है. मजनू कहता है तेरी नजर नहीं देखण वाली, चिट्टी वर्क कुरान दी विच स्याही रंग भी काली, चंगी हो जो दिल नू बाहे की गोरी की काली. White is the page of the Quran, but the ink on it is black. So this is not a relative, although he says कि वो अच्छी हो जो तुम्हें दिल को लगे. This is not actually a Keats kind of thought that beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. This is actually the thought that only if you have cleansed your vision, can you see the beauty in Jalal also. फिर तुम देखोगे जलाल भी जमाल. इसके पीछे ये आइडिया है. एस्थेटिक्स के लिहाज से एक और जो बहुत अहम आइडिया है, मौलाना रूम के अल्फाज में हम पेश कर देते हैं, जो आप सब ने शायद सुना भी हो. खुश्क तार खुश चोब खुश पोस्त अज कुजा मी आयद ई आवाज दोस्त. खुश्क तार खुश चोब खुश पोस्त अज कुजा मी आयद ई आवाज दोस्त. आवाज दोस्त शुरू हुई. नेज़ तार व नेज़ चोब व नेज़ पोस्त खुद ब खुद मी आयद ई आवाज दोस्त. We'll wait for the azan and then we'll give you the tashri of this basically. So to sum up, what Rumi is saying is that the string is dead, the wood is dead, the skin on the instrument is dead. So why is it that when I hear music I go into this ecstasy as if I were hearing the voice of God? The answer is given by Rumi himself in the next verse of this quatrain, that it is not the string, it's not the wood, it is not the skin, it's none of these dead things. It is from myself. Of course, I myself am composed of skin and bone and similar things. So what is it in myself that hears the music? It is the breath of the divine. Because when man was created, as you know, Adam was created, so God breathed unto him of his own spirit. So the theory is here in Sufi aesthetics is this, that everyone has a spark of their divine within them, of the divine within each individual, wherever they may be. And whenever they see a manifestation of great beauty, that part of them responds to that. And that is why they have that trance, or that feeling of being lost in an infinite ocean. It's a desire of longing to return to the source. So this was the primary aesthetic philosophy, the Sufi aesthetic philosophy, which Muslim craftsmen used to be aware of until they were cut off from their own tradition. We find a similar case in terms of Hindu tradition and Buddhist tradition and Taoist tradition. If you ask a Hindu artist or a Brahmin artist why they make their art the way they do it, so it was revealed to the sages. Again, it's not a horizontal influence. We took this from the Greeks and this from the Persian Empire, as Roy C. Craven or other historians put it. So this comes from, this probably happened when Chandragupta Maurya encountered the Persian Empire, and he thought it would be a good idea to have stone pillars. So let's have. So that's not what the artists say. The artists say, no, this was revealed in this Shastra, to this great sage. It has a very specific vertical influence. Similarly with Buddhist art, you might be aware, I'm not sure if you are, but the image of the Buddha, again for the Western scholar or the modernist scholar, whether he's Western or Eastern actually, the image of the Buddha is a new thing. It doesn't appear until a few hundred years after the Buddha's death, and they speculate on the various pragmatic